we tell lots of stories in the book. One I tell a lot is the one about the fraud sciences that you may remember. There's a guy named Scott Thompson who is still, I think, president of PayPal. We interviewed him many times for this book. It's a very interesting story about how he was asked by Benchmark Capital, which was the main investor in eBay, bought PayPal, to check out a tiny company in Israel called Fraud Sciences. And, you know, PayPal is a big company. Scott Thompson's a big executive, but, you know, Benchmark asked him to take a few minutes. He had to say yes. And so he's sitting there with Shvat Shaket, the young founder of Israeli founder, one of the founders of Fraud Sciences. And he asked Shvat, so what's your big secret for beating credit card fraud? And Shvat tells him, well, you know, I was in the army like most Israelis, and our job was to try to track terrorists over the internet. And we discovered that terrorists and other bad people don't leave a lot of traces of themselves on the internet. And good people, kind of normal people, they're not trying to hide anything. They leave lots of traces of themselves. You find traces, you got good people. You don't find traces, you got bad people. And you solve the problem. So, you know, now Scott Thompson is thinking to himself, I'm even more miffed that I said okay to Benchmark to take this meeting, because, you know, it's like, what is this craziness about good people, bad people, you know, what is this theory? Everybody knows that beating credit card fraud is this exhaustive process of going through credit card history. This is how, you know, tens of thousands of people in the industry are doing it now. All the banks and the credit card companies, and, you know, they come with a story of good people, bad people. So, but he figures, you know, he's got to keep going with this. So he asked him, okay, so how did you do with this scheme of yours? He said, well, we've been at it for 5 years, and we processed 40,000 transactions, and we only got about 14 wrong. So this is slightly more impressive, but not really for a company the size of PayPal. So Scott Thompson gets a great idea. He thinks, okay, I'm going to get rid of this guy. So what I was going to do is, he says to Shvat, I'm going to give you 100,000 transactions that PayPal actually processed. So we know how they turned out. And we're going to have to scrub the names for them for privacy reasons. Make it harder. But, you know, you take the data and see what you can do with it. And he figures, you know, this is perfectly legitimate. If you can't do 100,000 transactions, it's not really worth anything to me because you can't scale it. So he figures he's never going to see this guy again. It took him 5 years to do 40, and he just gave him 100. So, so Shvat goes home. This is a Thursday. By about Sunday, Scott Thompson gets a 2-word email. We're done. We did it. You know, Thompson is flabbergasted. He gives the data to his top 50 PhDs and engineers in the company, you know, only the cream of the crop. They're poring over it for about a week, and they haven't finished yet, but they get the idea that on the transactions that PayPal had the most trouble with, Fraud Sciences had done 17% better. So this is a game changer for an industry like this. PayPal thought of itself as the leader in the entire industry on this trying to beat credit card fraud. And here this tiny startup is like outperforming them. And so he goes running to Meg Whitman, who's head of eBay and maybe next governor of California, I don't know. And, you know, tells her, we can't let Benchmark invest in this company. We can't let anybody else invest in the company. We have to buy this company. So then they're in a bind. They know that if they tell Shvat how well he did on the test, that the price would go through the roof. But, you know, there's nothing to do. So they offered $80 million, and quick negotiation, just a few days, they agree on $170 million. And, and next thing you know, Scott Thompson, who never probably thought of Israel in his life before this, never met an Israeli or whatever, is on his way to Israel to see the company that he bought. And he's on the airplane, he's kind of waking up and he's kind of groggy. And he sees that screen in front as you're about to land, where you see the airplane icon where you're about to land, and he sees just what's right around there, of course. And you see Beirut and Damascus, Amman, Cairo. He's thinking, I'm flying into a war zone. I bought a company in a war zone. So he gets over this little panic attack, and he shows up at the Fraud Science, what was Fraud Science's parking lot, and he's impressed that there's about 50 cars there, and every car has a PayPal bumper sticker on it. He's impressed with that kind of loyalty. And then he starts talking to the whole company. Not that much bigger than this, and he's impressed that they're not texting or fidgeting or doing anything, and this part didn't strike me as very Israeli, but that's what Scott Thompson told me. So, and then he opens it for questions, and he's expecting questions like, you bought us, how is this going to work between our two companies? How is this going to merger and all that? And none of that stuff. It's all, what's wrong with your business model? Why do you do things this way? Why not that way? Tough questions about how PayPal does business, challenging stuff. And he starts to kind of almost sweat up there, and he's thinking, I thought I bought this company. It's like they bought me. So this is Scott Thompson getting the Israel treatment. And